All right, welcome to episode 3 of our podcast here at the DF Effect. I'm really excited to have Jessica here. We have like this lame title called Every Hire Counts, which I think every person in the world knows. In fact, Jessica and I were talking about like having her join at some point, and I was sitting there thinking, like what kind of title do we do this for this? And she's like, we got to come up with something cool. And then we never did. So we're just calling this Every Hire Counts. For those that are joining, we haven't done this in the last podcast, but grab a glass of bourbon if you want. Jessica's got water because she's got a day job that she's got to do with this. But anyways, we're really here to talk about competencies and what to look for with hires. So before we even dig down that path or go down that path, I'm going to hand it over to you, Jessica, just to give an introduction. We've been working with each other for a while, but I'll let you introduce yourself, your background, how we even met, and all of that.
Yeah, sounds good. So I am currently VP of People and Culture with Mosaic Consulting Group. I've been with Mosaic for about 7 years, and that's how Dave and I met, was through Mosaic when he joined a few years ago. Before Mosaic, I've been, in the HR and people space for my career. I've been in human services and healthcare and publishing and a bunch of different industries. But why I'm in this field and where my passion really lies is like connecting human behavior to business. I have a master's degree in organizational psychology, and I feel like it's an area that all businesses need of how you motivate, how you reward, how you engage, all using principles of social psychology that are already existing and already being used in other places and taking them and translating them into the business world. So like I said, I've been with Mosaic for 7 years. We've grown our company from 70 to 250 people, and using a lot of this that we're talking about today. So I'm excited to see where we go.
That's awesome. I actually love this. When I was in college, I got a dumb degree in like music business that I don't really use the music side. But when I got on the other side, I was like, maybe I won't tour for a living and I'll just like go do business. I was like, I'll hang out with people. HR sounds like a great role. And I heard about like this organizational development stuff that you can get in schooling. And I'm really jealous that you have that degree because it's like, how do you study people and how do they work and the changes that they do in their culture and all of that. With you though, specifically, and I was just talking to someone about this, like you're like one of the best HR leaders I've ever met, because most people take these concepts and they make them compliance focus, or how do we run through change management with like training documents and, performance management tools and all of that. But you legitimately look at people from a different perspective than probably any HR person I've ever worked with, which I really appreciate. I've worked with a lot of HR people. But one of the things that I really wanted to talk about, and we'll kick off this whole thing with, is really around like a conversation you and I had last year, which changed my whole mindset on hiring. I used to hire because, and I still do this to this day, I shouldn't tell you this, but I do this still. I like to hire people that I know. I like to fill the gap, so to speak. I need this role. I've got someone here that, is a body that I could teach how to do that role. But I'm not necessarily like hiring, so to speak, for the competencies inside that. The other side of the coin is a lot of people will hire just for the experience on a resume. And that can be a problem as well, because I've seen some people with some really strong resumes not be good hires, and it shows up later. And so you and I had a conversation a year ago, and I had to hire someone at a very senior level when we worked together there at Mosaic, and we sat down and I had my whole plan. I laid it all out and I was ready to do this thing, and you paused me, which is a very rare thing for an HR person to do. You paused me and you said, hold on, let's talk about competencies. And I literally said to you at that time, I don't even remember the exact words, but I was like, say what? Like, I know what competencies are, but like, what do you mean by that in hiring? And so like, what did you mean by that? Like you were passionate too. This is not like a concept you had learned in school. This was like a true, like, you believe this. What did you mean? And what were you thinking at that moment in time?
Yeah. So I could see you going down this path of like, you had a hole, you needed to fill the hole, you had a solution to fill the hole. But when you're hiring a senior level position, it's more than just that one hole, right? So like, we can't just say we're going to plug this over here, because then you're going to have something else blow up later. So I could see that like we were going down a direction of like gap, solution, but
Yep.
that the gap, like the solution to that gap may cause more gaps. And I wanted us to like take a step back and like look at it more holistically instead of just saying, we need person to do X, Y, and Z. Here's person, they can do
Yeah.
X, Y, and Z in a different way than we are doing right now.
Yeah.
Out the rest of it, right? So that was where it really came from, because I do think as a leader, sometimes we just have a tendency to forget some of those things, especially when they're going well. When they're not on fire in the moment, we can just be like, we don't need to worry about that. Like, let's just focus on this over here. And I didn't want us to like solve a hole that was obvious and ignore everything else. And then that said, like when I feel like we're hiring someone without fully defining a role, it can be super complicated because you're interviewing in a very vague way. And bringing in a competency model allows us to like be as objective as possible and like really measure a person against a role versus just like hiring for vibes.
Yeah. It's weird because like I feel like this is not just hiring, it's in all areas of the world, like relationships, everything. Like, we almost navigate our lives, friends, relationships, work, everything around like our perspectives of certain people at certain points. But you actually made me start thinking about competencies like in my whole life. I'm like, who am I surrounding myself with? Like, what does this like really mean? Like, and are they like long-term competencies? Is this like a short-term filler type thing? It was kind of and it's so funny because it's so blatantly obvious. You want to hire the right character. You want to hire the right types of people. You want to do the right types of things. But when you challenged me, I was like, maybe I'm not hiring that way. And I wasn't. I was trying to fill that gap in a different way. So I know, and I might be putting you on the spot just a little bit here. You opened up a document at this point in time. So I'm gonna have you dig deep into like your experience here a little bit. You opened up a document and like actually pulled up on screen because I asked you the question, what do you mean by competencies? And you started going on a path. So like, what types of things do you mean when you say competencies? What do you actually mean by that versus like, just the word, but you've done a lot of research and study on this. So what do you actually mean by competencies?
Yeah. So there are multiple different competency frameworks out there. Like there are a lot of different ones that are available. The ones that I like they're currently owned by Korn Ferry. So they're like the Korn Ferry Lominger competencies. And there's 38 of them. They really run the gamut across everything from leadership to tactical things. So there could be technical skills, there could be delegation skills, and they cover a wide variety of things. But what I really like about that competency model too is it shows you what the skill looks like when you're using it correctly, but it also shows what it looks like when it's underused or overused as well, which gives some different framework and perspective, especially as you're looking at talent that you might have in a role today, because then you can say, okay, this is an area that I need to bring this person up. This is an area they're using too much. Like, how do we tone it back down because they're relying on this one too much? So I really like it for a variety of different reasons. There's also a book called For Your Improvement, FYI, and like it literally breaks out every competency, what it looks like to use it well, but then it also gives like development materials on how to coach and develop those competencies. So like if there's one on emotional intelligence, for example, it's going to give you different further reading on emotional intelligence that then you can then take or turn around and give to your people who need to develop those skills, which I think is a really cool way to tie it all together.
Now you've seen hiring managers like me and others. You've probably seen like really good ones, and then like somewhere you're like, I really need you to not hire that person. And then you have to like, as HR, you don't actually get to make the decision. You have to advise. Some people are willing to hear, some people are not willing to hear. Can you talk to me maybe about like one of the best hires that you've ever seen? You don't have to bring up names, and it could be someone on your team, but maybe someone that originally from a resume perspective did not look like a good hire. But when you looked at them and you interviewed them and you were looking for competencies instead of just skill sets from the past, they ended up being one of the best decisions that you saw either in the organization or for you. Like, what did that process look like? Because I know you've seen them.
Yeah, I'm going to come at this in a circular way because I know we're not here to talk about hiring biases, but I think that's a huge piece of it, right?
Yeah.
Just like me. Typically, when you're hiring people, you gravitate towards the people who are most like you. You're looking for people who went to the same school as you, are in a similar stage of life as you. Maybe they live in a similar area. Maybe you know similar people. That's who you gravitate towards. And when you take out that subjectivity and look at it just based on competencies and based on skill sets and what you need, you're having a different level of conversation. Because I also feel like when you are interviewing people who do fit into that just like me category, you're interviewing them easier.
Yeah.
I see that time and time again. You can go in and you can have all of your structured interviews. You're going to have all of your interview questions. You're asking them to everybody, but you really like this person and you don't want to come off too strong. You don't want to come off too hard on them. You want to kind of lowball them a little bit. So you do lowball them and then you get really great answers. You're like, wow, what a great hire. This person's going to be fantastic, even though you just totally screwed yourself up in your interview process because you even changed your process based on who you thought they were and based on what you thought the conversation would best look like. So coming back to actually answer the question from there, one of my best hires is someone who I never would have expected that would be a great hire. So this is somebody who was very, very junior and didn't necessarily have the skill sets that I thought were going to be perfect for the role, right? Like it's somebody who had never done what I was looking for in that role. But they had a very applicable skill set based on past experience. And I spent most of my interview with this person digging into what kind of innovative and unique things they had done, how they handled change, how they lived in limbo, because those are the things that I knew was going to make somebody really successful on my team. Sure, they can do, XYZ tasks all day. I can teach somebody how to use a system. I can teach somebody how to manage, a recruiting funnel or whatever it is. Sure. But I can't teach somebody how to be able to live in the gray. I can't teach somebody the change leadership that often comes around with living in the gray, how to innovate a process. I can't teach that. That comes within you. So those are the areas that I focused on. And I mean, that person is one of my best hires to this day.
That's awesome. It's funny you said that because I was actually thinking one of my best hires was probably a junior at one point too. Like actually my very first hire, she actually may watch this video at some point. One of my favorite hires, she went on to be a recruiter and she does a fantastic job. She reached out to me a year ago, even though I hired her, 20 years ago now. But was an intern, brought her in from a competency perspective, I didn't even know I was doing it. I was so early in my career, I didn't know, but I didn't have the option of looking at a resume. I didn't have the option of I was looking at literally a raw person who had no experience. And I was looking at character at the time and I didn't even know it. And so it's funny because as you look for more experience now, obviously, if you're a doctor, you don't want to just have competencies. Like I don't need someone as a developer, they got to have experience in there, but you got to have the blend of both. What about someone that was not good? Again, no names, but a moment that might have been that point. I had one 5 years after that. So this would have been 15 years ago. I had one that I hired. Great. In my head, the greatest hire. And I was just talking to someone about this morning, and they came in and they made a lot of mistakes, and not just small mistakes. I mean, they knew what they were doing. They made some mistakes though, because they didn't have certain competencies that I needed. And because of that, I had to let them go. And they were a friend of mine. And I had to let them go. It was not fun. Lesson learned there. But anyways, what about a bad one for you? And what would you have done differently if you had to talk to them again?
So this is going back maybe 10 years. And I was at a fairly technical company, and there was a position that was really hard to fill. It was like a SQL developer, but it was also like a SQL developer, client-facing consultant.
Mine was too. Mine was SQL.
Right? Needed to have a lot of different skill sets. And, was our pay the best? No. Was the job probably the best for somebody with that skill set? Also, no. So it was a really tough talent pool, and it was a really tough position to fill. And we had 3 openings, and we were beggars can't be choosers. You can see how this is, you can see where this is going. So we made an offer. as soon as we offered the position, I was like, this isn't going to go great. Like, this is not going to go great. Like, I just had the feeling based on how he received the offer, like that it was not going to go great. I ended up letting him go on his 10th day. Because it went really badly, really fast, right? And like all of the signs were there.
Yeah.
All like he had the technical skills, yes. He had some polish to him to be able to put in front of clients, yes. He was also very cocky and very arrogant. And we overlooked those things.
Yeah, because you needed to fill it.
Exactly. We needed the skill set. He had the skill set.
Yeah.
Cocky and arrogance and ego was his downfall, you know? And that's something we clocked from the very beginning. We knew it was there. We knew it was going to be a potential problem.
It ended up being that.
It ended up being that. And literally for the next 2-3 years, I continued hearing about this guy and how painful the
10 days. 10 days.
Like literally, it was his second week on Friday. Yeah. Like I continued hearing about it for multiple years from people who had to interact with him in that 10-day period.
Yeah. That's interesting that you said 10 days because that means you got rid of him after 10 days. So you did not. I've heard a lot of people talk about this. You hire fast and you term fast, which we won't go down that path. Maybe we'll talk about that on a whole different episode at some point. I've held on to the wrong people for too long before, and that's a whole nother issue that holds your team back in a different way. But what you just brought up was something that I see. I mean, knowing our audience is small business owners. And a lot of times small business owners, the owner is the expert at what they do. They had this vision. They started this company. They were good at what they did. They started growing to a certain point and they may be capped out. Maybe they're capped out at 2, 3, 5 million, whatever that is. They're a team of 10 to 15 people and they don't know how to get past where they're at. And the issue that I see is they don't know how to replace themselves. And part of the reason they don't know how to replace themselves is maybe they're looking for the wrong thing. And I'm pretty convinced of this. Like you're looking for someone to be you instead of looking for someone that's the right fit for the job that you're trying to fill. So I don't need you to replace yourself. I need you to like fill the need that you have. And that's how you start building out your leaders and all of that. But when you look at filling, because you worked with Mosaic when they were small and you're working with them when they're bigger. When they were smaller, you didn't have as many people to pull from and your pay grades were different. Like how you could pay people, the salaries were different. You know, everything was incentivized differently at that point in time. What were the competencies you looked for in people? Like if you had to name out 3 competencies that every leader, every business owner, every entrepreneur, whether you're big or you're small, like what are those 3 core ones that you are non-negotiables for you?
Oh yeah, for me, the number one is dealing with ambiguity, especially in a small business. How somebody can handle ambiguity and live in change and, you know, not even just live through it themselves, especially if they're in a leadership capacity, how they can lead others through change when they don't even have all the answers. Like there is nothing more powerful in a small business than that one, because there are some people who are really great in a big business, and what makes them really great in a big business is often has to do with change. It has to do with stability. And in a small place, you need people who can go with the flow. You need people who can, you know, take little direction and build something. You need people who can then also cascade a vision that is, you know, a very subjective and changing vision. And they can then also buy into without giving people fear. Like it is a very difficult balance to find that person. But when you find that person, like that is somebody who is going to be able to grow with you through your business.
So pause really quick on that one. I was not expecting this. We did not talk about this at a time. I was not expecting it. And as a small business owner who's like literally starting from ground up, and I've worked in the big organizations, I couldn't agree more. Like that would actually be my number one. If I look at hires today, I'm not as worried about the skill set. I can teach a skill set, but what I actually care about is, can you flow with me as we're building? Like, can you actually like navigate the growth of this? Can you learn, not get stressed out and bail on me if it gets hard or it's different than what we talked about even 3 months ago? Like we are going to go through a lot of change and I need to know that you're on the side with me. And I don't have all the answers today. If you ask me for today's answers, I don't have them all yet. So that's interesting that you say that. That would have been my number one.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is my number one too. And my number two is delegation. And that's not like delegation of like tasks. That's delegation of decision making. That's delegation of authority. And like what you're expecting people to do. Like I think that is absolutely paramount, especially in a small business. Because if you have a leader who's like, I need to be the one to make every decision, you're never going to grow. You are going to stay at the same size you are because that person is going to become a bottleneck. They are involved in too many things and they are not developing their people. So the more that you can cascade delegation through your business, the more successful you are going to be because you cannot have one person be the decision maker for everything. And then, you know, too, that person does need to be able to delegate tasks. Like that is a thing as well, but like delegating authority and decisions, you need that most.
Yeah, I'll pause you on that one too, because I think I'm going to ruffle some feathers here, but we business owners are the number one problem with that. We talk about how we like to let people lead and we want to grow and they're the leaders and they can make decisions. But then when it ultimately comes down to it, we're not comfortable with it. And I think we're not comfortable with it because then it doesn't look like what we thought. If someone else makes a decision and they didn't run it by me, then it may not look like what I thought. And this actually was like in our last episode when we were talking incentive plans with John West, a very common, also another thing, like what if you reveal too much information about your finances? What if you reveal too much about your targets? And it's just like, we want to protect our cards too much and it's preventing us from growing. But it's the way I see it is if you have the right people, it's okay to open up your cards. It's okay to delegate. You have to trust, and it's going to look different than you thought. And you need people that can also do that, but they're not going to do it if you're holding them back. You know, so you almost have to check your own competencies in the process.
Agreed. And as I was saying that too, I was thinking about John West and ownership thinking. He did pop into my brain because they go hand in hand. Like if it's all about how you cascade that vision and getting people bought into it so that they can make the best decision based on the information available. Yeah.
It gets harder too. It's the bigger you get, the harder it is. And, you know, all right. So third competency, what do you look for?
Humility, the ability to own your mistakes, know when you're wrong, no ego, check the ego at the door. Like, I think that is absolutely paramount because that's your business, right? Like if you have unhappy customers, you need somebody who can take their feedback with grace and not be like, well, you were the one who was wrong. Right? Like that's not going to get you far anywhere with customers, with your people. The more humility somebody has, they're more likely to have a growth mindset as well. Like they're more likely to be able to grow and develop, learn new skills, take your feedback, apply that feedback, which is also a hard thing to do, right? Like you can hear the feedback and apply that feedback is a totally different thing. And that's so tied to humility. Like having that humility skill is so important.
Yeah. I had someone once tell me there's a difference between confidence and arrogance. And I think it ties to humility. You can be confident in not being right all the time. You can be confident in admitting that you were wrong. You and I have experienced this. I know like during the 4 years I was at Mosaic, there was a couple moments that like were really challenging me that changed my life forever, that you got to witness from the HR side. And I had to look at it and I was like, wait a second, I'm right. And then there was the other side where I was like, does it matter if I'm right? And what's more important here, the relationship and the growth of the team and the organization, or me being right? And I think that is such a key component for any leader. Like for a leader to be able to come and say, it's not about me. It's not about even me being right. This is about us. That's tough. That's not easy.
Agreed. To be able to put your own ego and your beliefs aside and do something that's for the betterment of the company. That is not easy, especially when, you know, they might be like your second in command. Like how do you manage that? It makes it really difficult.
Yeah. Now you as HR, and remember you're talking to entrepreneurs that they may not even have HR at this point in time because they can't necessarily afford it, right? And that's what I love about this. I'm bringing in someone that has so much experience, and something to the table that, large organizations can afford, but not small organizations. What would be your number one piece of advice to an owner trying to find their second in command around this topic of competencies? They're all trying to find their second in command.
I bet. I mean, it's a hard thing to do, right? Like, I think the biggest thing is, I know we've talked about this a little bit, Dave, is like, you can't recreate yourself. You're not going to hire yourself. Don't try to. Just take that off the table. What things are you best at that you can't let go of right now? What things can you let go of that you need somebody smarter than you in? Because you can't replace yourself. Don't try to replace yourself. But like, if you hate bookkeeping, you're not good at bookkeeping, don't necessarily go hire a bookkeeper, but hire somebody who is that senior level person who is really good with the numbers, because then that gets it off your plate. That gets it into somebody who can take it and elevate it further. And also too, a lot of founders might not necessarily be good at people development, right? Like, a lot of founders are great at the strategy, the ideas, the building something from the ground up, but how you motivate people and get people bought into something, if that's an area that you're not good at, hire somebody with that skill set, because you can still do what you're best at. You can coach that person in those areas, but now you have a person who can take what you've already built and bring it to the next level in a way that you might not be able to.
It's funny that you say that too, because, you don't always have the ability to hire people with these types of things. Your network also matters. It doesn't have to be people that you hire. It can be your friends and your network, and opening up to those conversations. I know with myself, that day that you and I had, I think that was the biggest realization I had, that I don't have to be the person that sees the competencies all the time that I need. I can have people that are really good at that help me see things that maybe I don't see, because that's not what I'm good at. Another thing that I'm really not good at is holding accountability. Like, this about me. You've worked with me long enough. I'm not necessarily good at accountability. I love bringing people together, and I like them happy, and I like them doing their thing. And I don't like if people think that I'm mad or whatever. And so, like, I have an issue with that. And so I've surrounded myself with people that help me with that too. They help me see my blind spots, or, as I talk through things. And so I think it's really important for entrepreneurs to not just surround yourself with people that talk about money and revenue and profit and loss, but surround yourself with people that you can openly talk to about hiring, or how do I handle this leader, or how do I, handle this situation that's going on. Maybe it's me. Can you check me if it's me? Can you make sure you can tell me, and like, have those relationships that are so honest to do that? Because we all have blind spots. We're not all good at it. All right, so we're gonna wrap up. We don't typically go very long on these things, but I want to thank you so much. I already have an idea to invite you back at some point. I wish I could bring you back like every month, because I feel so much knowledge in your head around stuff like this. And but is there anything that you want to leave the group, if there was any business owner, or maybe rising business owner or founder, or you never know, there may be some leaders out there that are running a $20 business right now that may catch wind of this. What would be one thing you would want to leave with them that they could go away during the weekend and really go, like, I gotta think about that.
Yeah, I'm gonna tie it back to what you were just saying, because I think it really brings everything together. Look at the people around you. Are the people around you the people you need to be around you? Like, when you're looking at your network, whether that's in your business, whether that's your greater like kind of community of entrepreneurs that you spend time with, who are those people? Are they very similar to you? Do you need a diversity of opinions in there? If so, go find that diversity of opinions. Go find somebody who's going to challenge you. You don't want to be in an echo chamber, because you're never going to grow outside of your echo chamber. And, that could be finding, a coach, or finding somebody who's just going to pull you out in different ways and get you to think about things differently. Because I really think at the end of the day, that's when your business plateaus, it's because something plateaued, and you need to get to the root of what it is that plateaued, so that way you can move past it. Yeah.
Well, you are awesome. Jessica, thank you. I appreciate it. I have so much respect for you. I know I've said that already, but I'm looking forward to more episodes in the future. I don't know when they'll be, but like at some point I'll reach out. You know me, I'll just ping you and, we'll have a conversation. Make the next conversation. We have like a title for the next podcast. How about that? Where someone can read and be like, oh, we know what they're talking about.
Yeah, we'll come up with better titles moving forward.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. I appreciate it. And we'll be talking soon.
Sounds great. Thank you all. Have a wonderful day.
All right. See ya.